Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Reference Point. I'm your host, Dave Kocharhook. Today, you can see we've got a little bit of a different setup on our staging today because I've got four gentlemen here who are from Team Percussion USA. We're going to talk a little bit about exactly what that means. I want to have them tell you what Team Percussion USA is about, but I'm going to introduce these guys first so you know who they are and what they do for this organization, and then we're going to start diving into it. So, first here in this fantastic red sweater is Jim, now you're going to help me with this, Schoenduve. Schoenduve. See, I pronounced his name wrong, and I should have known that already. I got a name like Kocharhook. I'm sensitive to last names.
I feel your pain.
Jim Schoenduve, you're the CEO and founder of Team Percussion USA, correct?
Correct.
And then in the blue shirt, here immediately to your right, Chris
Sear,
C-Y-R, Sear, Chris Sear, and you're the executive director, so you kind of help do a lot of the day-to-day activities to run the organization, right?
yes.
Okay. Over here in the gray sweater, Matt Ring. And Matt, they tell me that you are one of the instructors, like the drumline instructor for the group, which I guess that's sort of overall trying to help the guys understand what to do and how to play the instruments.
Yeah, that'd be a fair assessment.
Okay, and we're going to talk some about that. And then Brandon Hussey, who is the choreographer for the group. Now, we're going to see something a little bit later. You guys did a competitive thing. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. So you're the guy that helps decide where people move and how they move and what they do while they're, moving around with things like this massive drum that we brought here that we'll talk about a little bit later. Did I have that right?
Yeah, that's it. I'm one of the two, yeah.
One of the two. Very cool. Well, Jim and I met at an event 3 weeks ago or so, and I was Jim, I was impressed and taken with what it was that you were explaining that you were doing with this organization. What I'd like you to do, to take a moment here, tell people what is Team Percussion USA, and what is it that you are looking to accomplish and do with this organization?
Well, Team Percussion USA, we're trying to address an issue because teenagers today, we have a very high dropout rate from high school. We have a very high crime rate with teenagers. The teenagers that are entering the workforce don't have the skills that are needed by the businesses for running their corporations. So as a society, what can we do to help address this issue with the teenagers? So if you look at the way society has set up programs for 6-year-olds to 12-year-olds, there's many terrific programs for them. There's Little League, there's Pop Warner football, there's Boy Scouts, there's soccer for our friends from Canada, there's hockey, and
curling.
And curling.
Yeah, curling. You can't forget curling.
That's all we have.
But once those kids turn 13 years old, all those programs sort of die away for one reason or another. So you have that situation, and you compound it with governments have had to cut back funding for schools, so the schools necessarily have to cut funding for after-school programs and music, which further contributes to the problem with teenagers. So can we define an activity, or what can we do to address that situation? So this is life. You can be a spectator or you can be a participant. So Team Percussion is an attempt to hopefully address some of those issues.
And what you guys are an indoor percussion ensemble. Is that the correct way of stating that?
That's correct.
Correct. Okay, so Chris, tell us what exactly that means.
Well, it's sort of a unique take on marching band where we eliminated all the horns and color guard members and just made just drummers, and kind of specifically made it inside indoor gyms so we can kind of have our own little flavor without everything else in there. And it's getting pretty big. It's actually really cool. A lot of energy, like teenagers come out and just check out the entertainment value of what we're doing. A lot of showmanship. There's always a theme to the show that kind of takes you on a journey and takes you through some elements of music that haven't been heard inside.
So it's a music and a performance activity.
Yes.
And it sounds like, from the way you were describing it, that it's not just localized here in the Bay Area.
No, it's actually a worldwide thing now. It's gotten to the point where it has its own circuit. It's called Winter Guard International.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we see people from all over the world, Japan, Canada, they all come out and compete. And we have a world finals in Dayton, Ohio that we're actually going to again for our second year.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So, Jim, how long has the organization been in place?
This is our second season, so we're only 2 years young, so we're learning. It's originally got started, I had met Chris, and I saw the way he could interact and connect with kids, particularly teenagers, through percussion. So we said, maybe this is a way we can get the teenagers into a program, into a structure, so that they can participate in drumming.
And so, Matt and Brandon, you guys are working day to day with these young men and women. I guess it's boys and girls, right? Men. So it's and you're working with them day to day to try to get them to embrace this team concept and all that sort of stuff, right? How are you finding that, Matt?
Well, honestly, we're very fortunate with the membership that we do have. We have a really great group of youngsters that are with us, and from a lot of different backgrounds. Honestly, I think that just because of the nature of this activity, if you really do want to be involved in it, the teamwork aspect of things, it's not really optional. So I think it's a little bit of something that the kids are embracing just by necessity. What's that expression? Necessity is the mother of creation. Right? And that's kind of what we've experienced with them too. It's you just lay out the show for them, and that's a big part of what Brandon does, and what Brandon and a couple of our other staff members, Casey and a lot of these other very talented guys have done. Yeah, really, you lay it out, and then it's kind of up to them, and it's up to us to kind of help guide them through that process. But a lot of the discoveries and a lot of the innovation is really coming from the individuals on the floor.
Innovation, that's an interesting term to use here. Are we talking about innovation in terms of what?
Well, just in the best way to get it done, I guess would be a good way to put it. A lot of the processes, especially because of the age of our organization, I mean, we do have a very, how would you put that, experienced staff. But on that same level, just kind of defining how we operate and how we function, and how Team Percussion is going to do what Team Percussion does. That's really up to the members to dictate the pace of how that's going to go. And both seasons, I mean, last year we had a really great crop of kids that came through for our first season, and it was one of those things where if you would have asked anybody in the middle of our season if they thought we would survive a second year,
they would have said, I don't know.
You would have had some mixed responses, I think, on that, and I think that most of the responses would have been people being polite.
But you've done it.
Well, and I think it's important to point out is that this is not an all-star team.
No.
There's other drum corps that are in the United States, and the way they operate is they will hold auditions, and the very best drummers from around the country and around the world will come out and audition to be members of those teams.
Oh, right, okay.
We're a little different in that because of the way we've structured the program, we can only have members on our team that are from schools that don't have music programs.
Oh.
So we're picking up kids that don't have access to this type of activity at their schools.
Interesting. Interesting. Brandon, I want to go to you for a moment in terms of the conversation about the choreography and the laying out of activities, because this is there's a lot of motion. It's not a static thing where people are just standing around playing drums like a rock and roll band or something. You've got these people moving around. It's more like a halftime entertainment at a college football game than anything else, I would think.
Definitely, there's a lot of movement involved with our activity. Being the indoor percussion, there's only so many things that you could do with a drum and marching around with it. And part of the innovation thing that you were talking about earlier is how do you look different? How do you stand out? How do you make our group look unique? And a big thing that we do is find what they can do well, expose those things. As far as performance and performing in front of people, creating that emotion definitely takes us on a large journey into whatever music we select that season. And then through the theme that we decide with our show, which this year is still growing. We're still finding that perfect mixology of movement and music, and the choreography part definitely expands as the season goes on.
So a particular performance number, how long is a particular performance number?
For our division, for the class that we in, WGI works in 3 different classes. And the class that we're in, it's about a 6-minute show, 5.5 minute show.
Okay, 6-minute show. And you guys just recently did a show. Matter of fact, this past weekend, didn't you? Wasn't there a competitive event recently? Correct.
We just came back from Fresno. I still have the sunburn.
That's right. It was warm this past weekend.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be interesting for our audience to actually get some sense of to what it is we're talking about. And I want to go to this now because we've just talked about the choreography and the movement and the integration of the music and all that sort of stuff. So I think we've got something queued up, and let's just take a look at what a little bit of what the guys did this weekend. Very cool. So how many young people are in the group right now?
We currently have 22 right now.
22. And what's the mix of boys and girls?
We have about 6 girls. Mostly it's the front ensemble piano players tend to be more female, and the battery tends to be more male, but it's starting to break out. We get more girl drummers every year.
Half of
Cool.
the basses this
Yeah,
year. Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. So how many different types of drum are there in the ensemble?
We
I
have
count.
3 basic marching drums. There's a snare drum, which is the soprano voicing. We have a tenor drum, obviously tenor voicing the mid drums, and then a bass drum, which is our low end. And in the front ensemble, we have a range from all marimbas, vibraphones, metal, wood, pianos essentially that we hit with sticks,
Oh, cool.
and a couple keyboards and synthesizers and electronics and all kinds of extra sounds we add in for flavor.
Very cool. And what is this particular unit that's sitting at the front of the stage here?
It's heavy.
It's heavy. All right. Matt, you want to tell us about what this is?
Yeah, so these would be tenor drums. So these would be the mid voicings that Chris was mentioning. They're also called quads. Yeah, it's basically very high-tuned tom-toms, I guess would be a good way to describe it.
You mentioned a word there, tuning, because I do some singing, okay,
Yeah.
and I know that you have to deal with that, and I've dabbled in piano over the years and tuning the strings and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So do you actually tune a drum in the same manner that you would tune other type of instruments?
In a similar fashion, I suppose. It's mostly if you're looking around the drum too, you're going to see these the lugs or lug nuts that are around the drum. Basically, the tension that's created across the head. You're trying to equalize the tone from one lug to the next one.
Interesting.
Yeah, you get a much.
Tune that one.
Yeah, we need to tune this. Yeah.
Typically, they would be in pitch,
Yeah,
F, D, B flat, F, D, octave.
Oh,
So
cool.
there is interval training. I mean, if the drums are not quite in tune, but the intervals are right, it still sounds good.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I think the other interesting thing about this is the kids rehearse from 9 to 5 on a Saturday and a Sunday,
9 a.m. to 5
9
p.m.?
a.m. to 5 p.m., and they're carrying those drums.
Okay.
So these are, it's an indication of the physical fitness and the physical requirements of the activity that they have to carry those and be graceful as they're performing.
I gotta try this. Let's see if we can put this in. See what this is like. They have to do this from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Probably with a few breaks here. You get a chance to go to lunch and whatever. But
There you go.
how do I look?
You look great.
Cool. This is awesome.
We have practice tomorrow night.
is,
You can come out.
Yeah.
This is not light.
No, it's about 42 pounds with the hardware and the equipment put together.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a lot of hiking with the Boy Scouts and stuff like that. You wear a 30-pound pack on your back and you're going, but the weight is in the front here.
There you go.
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah.
completely different type of a situation here.
Right.
And now,
Wow.
and now you combine that with the choreography from Brandon,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and you're playing as well. So it's it
Wow.
requires
gets
all
pretty
three of
intense.
those to be proficient.
Amazing.
Well, and that's part of the rehearsal schedule. Obviously, it's a pretty intensive workload and a very high demand that you put on the students. Because you think about this, it's really 5 minutes of music. 5 minutes goes by like that when you're not in just your day-to-day life.
Right.
So You imagine the amount of time and preparation that goes into making 5 minutes work well.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mentioned to you guys before we came on to the start of the show here that I do some singing.
Yeah.
I sing with the barbershop chorus, and we've got
Yeah.
a 40-man chorus. And preparing for a 3-minute song with 40 people
It's
to make
intense.
sure that all 4 parts are, you know, harmonious and the choreography is, it's not easy. I got to give you a lot of credit on that, because that's phenomenal. And you're working with teenagers who would oftentimes rather be doing something else.
Well, I think that's what's inspiring to me is that these are teenagers getting up at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. To come out and- but it gets better because they'll call up and say, Mr. Schoenduve, we know practice starts at 9 o'clock, but could you show up at 8 a.m.? We'd like to practice some more.
Wow.
Or can I come over to your house and use the marimba because I want to rehearse some more so I'm ready when it's time for a competition? Or can I take my drums home with me
Yeah.
and practice? So
you-
these kids are really
This
something
is
else.
more. This is more than just an opportunity to play some music.
Yeah.
It sounds like. I mean, you're talking about young men and women who are now. I don't know how to phrase it, but that sounds like they've found something special in their life that's beyond just the opportunity to play a percussion instrument.
Well, we hope so. The idea was to say we'll get the very best instructors. These gentlemen here are the very best instructors in Northern California. We'll get you the very best instruments. So you as a student, it's now up to you. So it's how well the team will do will depend upon your work ethic, your willingness to put in the time to become proficient at these instruments. And, you know, it's up to you.
Right. So you had told me at one point that part of the thing that inspired you, Jim, when you started to look at how you would put a plan like this together was to sort of follow some of the kind of stuff that John Wooden had done with the UCLA team in terms of trying to instill in those young men that he was working with certain values and team spirit and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, what happened, whenever you start a new organization, whether it's a church, a company, a nonprofit, or a team, it's very important to set the culture from when the organization is first started, because if you don't define it, it will be defined for you, and you may not like the results. So we said, you know, John Wooden was a very famous basketball coach at UCLA, and when I was 8 years old, my father took me to see him. I grew up in Los Angeles, and he brought Lou Alcindor with him. Lou Alcindor later became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
So I was at Westchester Park. There was Coach John Wooden and Lou Alcindor, and at the end of the evening, John Wooden handed out a piece of paper to all the kids that were there, and on that piece of paper was not a instructions on how to set a pick and roll or how to improve your jump shot. On that piece of paper was something about, it was a pyramid, and in each block there was a attribute about how to live life. It's integrity, it's poise, it's friendship, it's all of these things that are required to be successful. So it was interesting, and even today, if you listen to interviews with Bill Walton, who played at UCLA, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor, they say, I went to UCLA, but I don't remember, what I remember about UCLA is not so much about the basketball, it's about what Coach Wooden taught me about life.
Wow.
And so that's what we tried to do here, is to say, you know, if it came from me, it wouldn't have the weight that it would having someone like John Wooden there to say, this is our culture, this is how we're going to interact with others, this is how we're going to interact with the kids, and this is what we expect from our staff.
So Chris, how are the young men and women responding to this kind of a concept?
Oh, it's amazing. The turnout's been growing exponentially. Every time we go to rehearsal, there's new kids coming out, checking out what we're doing. Some kids have just embraced it completely to the point where their lives have changed, from video games to getting off their butts and going out and doing some physical activity. And that's amazing to watch, you know, to see the transformation in the kids and to see the looks in their faces when they win first place for all their hard work. And it's just been an amazing experience so far for them. And for us as a staff to see them grow, it's been very fulfilling.
You had sent me something earlier today, Jim, that was some statements from some of the young people about what being part of Team Percussion USA has meant for them, which I was reading some of these. I thought, my goodness, this is just this is incredible. You know, the best experience of my life, one kid says. It's more than drumming. I have learned things about life through this group that I will always live by. Not only that, but I have met some really great people and consider this group my family. That's pretty powerful.
These are teenagers.
Yeah.
So it's a tribute to the staff because these are the gentlemen that they look to for role models and mentors.
So how did you guys get involved in this type of activity?
I slipped, I tripped.
I had to find an elective, so I took band.
Oh, okay.
With me, actually, a gentleman came to my school recruiting for a small Division II drum corps in Canada. It's actually it's amazing because those seemingly insignificant decisions that you make. Like at the time, it was either I go hang out with my friends all summer and party in Edmonton, or I go on this tour. This guy just wouldn't stop bothering me and calling me and trying to get me to go. And so finally, I went, and then it became an obsession. Right? It wasn't even just something I enjoyed doing. It's something you become obsessed with. You go home and you listen to all the tapes, videos. You can't stop thinking about it. Right? You wake up, you think about it. You go to bed thinking about it, and it's hard to explain.
I think anyone who has an opportunity to participate in some sort of creative endeavor, some sort of music or art, dance or painting or theater, that when it's really inside you have that kind of an experience. I totally can relate to that. I think that's fantastic, and it's wonderful that you're able to offer this to these young men and women. So Jim, tell me about what the plan is for this group moving forward, and what you're hoping to accomplish with this activity.
Well, as I said initially, the issue is about teenagers and what can we do as a society to help teenagers become the best citizens that they can. So what we're trying to do is to establish an organization in San Jose first and figure out what works. So we have the very best instructors. We're making a program that it appears to be successful. So we're going to take those lessons learned and then try and replicate it in each community throughout the United States. This would follow the model that was done in Venezuela, where the gentleman there in Venezuela 30 years ago said we should establish an orchestra in every village, rich or poor, and bring kids in to learn to play classical instruments. And now those kids in that program have now they're running the large philharmonics, the most famous ones in the world.
Right.
So why can't we do that with percussion in the United States?
Wow.
So I probably can't get
ambitious.
teenagers to take up violins.
Yeah.
But I can get them to play drums.
You can get them to play drums.
And as Chris says, the drum is the easiest instrument to start to play, but it's the most difficult to master.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's true.
Makes sense.
Well, it's interesting too, just how drumming, particularly the marching activity, it was never cool when I did it, right? And it's becoming this hip thing where everybody, you're noticing all of these professional sports teams and organizations are picking up drum lines. San Francisco, they have one. Golden State, they have one. And it's just, over time, it's become this thing that it's not just, and a part of it is because of that movie that came out a little while ago that got some notoriety.
Right.
Say what you will, it gave the activity this bright spotlight cast on it, and ever since then it seemed like just the popularity has gained momentum, and now we're seeing people that are proactively seeking out this type of thing instead of my case where I was sought after.
So they're coming to you.
Yeah.
Brandon, how are the young people responding to the choreographic demands?
Oh wow, that's see a lot of that is brand new. Oh, brand new. And it's really fun to see them learn and pick up their Bambi legs and make them move right, and they're developing quick. That's one thing. You talk about the investment these kids make with time, the movement capabilities that they have now compared to, really, I'd say 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Just because this is actually a fast part of the season, but about 3 weeks ago to now, they're moving unbelievably different. They can turn the same
Together, synchronized.
Just turning. I mean, standing and turning. And
Very cool.
They develop a huge sense of pride and something about why do we still do it. It just makes you feel good. When you can take a simple 5-minute show and make someone clap for you, that feels real good.
It does.
And when we get 30 kids out there on the floor and do it together and get compliments, that's something foreign. So when they start moving their bodies, which they're already teenagers and they're already worried about how they look, and someone claps about what they did because of how they looked, oh, that's
special.
That's huge.
That's
you know,
very cool.
That's boosting morale in places they've never felt before.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's
Self-esteem goes way up.
definitely. Yeah.
That's very cool.
That's a testament to the visual staff's teaching ability because they teach them through technical formal ballet.
Yeah.
They learn passes, tiers, all the positions that you would receive in a ballet class we teach for drumming. So we have a reference point
Which would
that's
make
compatible
sense
with the rest of the world of dance.
because that's the basics for any of the motion that you would have to do. Because you're gonna go up, you're gonna go down, you're gonna turn left, right, you're gonna pivot. Yeah,
it's
very
fun.
cool.
And just, this is an indication of how good these guys are, is because, like I said, we're not an all-star team. So some of our members of our team this year hadn't played the drums before.
Oh, really?
And yet Brandon, Matt, and Chris have been able to develop their skills such that they can win first place at the Western Regionals.
Nice.
So they've really done a good job.
So how did they do this past weekend? We have about a minute and a half left in the show. How did they do this last weekend?
Well, we
We won 2 shows in a row.
Won
and
2 shows in a row.
Set some of the highest scores in the country right now.
Oh, nice. So what's
too
the
bad.
next step for the group? Is there like a next level competition or something?
Yeah, we have 3 local championships to attend, and then we go out to the major finals at the beginning of April for the world finals and compete against everybody else and see where we line up.
Got it. Very cool. Well, we're going to do a second segment of discussion here about Team Percussion USA. And when we come back, I want to talk more about some of the foundational principles and what you're looking to do with that. I want to know more about how you guys manage, as you're a nonprofit organization, I want to know more about how you get funded and all that sort of thing so we can let the folks know. But we'll cover that when we come back in the next segment. So this was very cool. Thanks for letting me try the drum, too. That was awesome. So ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to come back for our next segment of Reference Point, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.